Do the Philadelphia Eagles have the vehicle to drive this offense at quarterback? Let's talk for a few minutes, guys. What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, Division Rivals? This is Steven Hyder, Gate City Sports Channel. Sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Hey, what's good, guys? If this is the first, second, third time maybe you caught my content, if I can ask you to do me a huge solid here, guys, if you like today's discussion, if you could just hit that subscribe button, I would love to add you to the community. We just crossed over 5,000. We're heading towards 10,000. I would love for you to be a part of that equation. To my OG subscribers, if I can just ask you guys to keep hitting that like button, guys, help me spike the algorithm, get this in front of the new audience members to help potentially convert them into our membership here, our little community, if you will. All right, guys, today's topic. So a lot of you guys keep asking me the same question. And long story short, time will tell, guys. I mean, there's nothing I can say. I don't know. I mean, I'm the same as you. I don't know. I have no clue until we actually see the product on the field. With that said, I will give you guys a detailed explanation. You guys know I'm not just going to leave you like that. I went back and I took a look at 3 players in particular to kind of judge what the teams did coming out of their second year, going into their third year, and what their production did from their second year to their third year and how things kind of shaped up. Now, the 3 players I looked at were Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, and Russell Wilson. And the first thing I noticed was the differences kind of in ages here, because Josh Allen was 24 years old going into his third season in the league. Dak Prescott was 25 years old going into his third season in the league. And Russell Wilson was 26 years old going into his third season in the league. And I will say that we do have to account for there being some schematic differences between what Josh Allen was asked to do with Brian Daboll there in Buffalo compared to what Dak Prescott was asked to do between Jason Garrett and the whole zigs and zags and things going on with Dallas and their coordinators and the balance and the struggle between head coach and OC and kind of the way that played out later on. And then there's also the big difference of what happened in Seattle with a conservative, defensive-minded head coach like Pete Carroll, and kind of some of the differences you see there with a guy like Russell Wilson and what the expectations were for a young player at that duration and time of his career. So, straightforward, guys. All that stuff has to be accounted for. We can talk in the comment section if you guys want to talk about how that may have led things to go one way or another and how it can complicate an evaluation. I'm all down for that, guys. I recognize that that's certainly a thing. With that said, the first player I want to talk about is Russell Wilson, because I think this is the hardest one to kind of filter through, because you got a conservative, defensive-minded head coach, and you got the cusp of the league. This is just when the league really started to grab that foundation and change itself completely. Now, we had already saw kind of 2008, 2009-ish. We started seeing a lot more 11-man personnel. Teams were kind of deviating away from that 2-back set. Fullbacks were coming off the field. We had a lot of things going on. New England in the early 2010s had started going even to 2 tight end sets with the whole Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez kind of thing. So the league was going through changes. There's no doubt about it. But it was still predominantly far more run heavier in 2012 than 2022. I mean, straightforward, guys. I know that. You know that. There's no doubt about it. But we're talking a couple years past that date and that time. So we're talking about, honestly, the 2014 season. He was 26 years old. And he ended up having 452 attempts on that year for 285 completions, a 63% completion rate, 3,475 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, guys. When I averaged that out, just the kind of numbers, it came out to about 25 attempts a game. By far, this was the least amount. Okay, this was the least amount of any of the quarterbacks, including Jalen Hurts last year. He did not attempt nearly as many passes as some of these other guys. I will say that, Russ he's a little different. I mean, he's definitely has some of the elusive ability of a Jalen Hurts. He definitely can break a dude down off the ball. But I will say that it was naturally inclined for Russ to try to always look down the field for throwing options before running. He did that even at NC State. I've watched Russ at NC State long before he ever transferred to Wisconsin as a very young quarterback, a very unheralded prospect, kind of blossom, become an actual really good player. So, I mean, that's always kind of been part of Russ's DNA. And I don't know that you can ever say that anyone's going to be like that. Russ is kind of like a shorter version of McNabb, but more explosive with a little bit more playmaking ability, although I can see that McNabb element where, yeah, McNabb definitely ran. He got his yardage. He did those things with his legs. But McNabb also kept looking down the field, right? I mean, we're kind of hoping we get that trajectory from Jalen Hurts, that we can move Jalen Hurts more into that direction of use that athletic, that God-given ability, but also keep those eyes down the field and see if you can't find those opportunities when coverage breaks because you're threatening them with your legs. So, moving off of Russell Wilson, well, let's just talk about the year prior, his sophomore year, right? His second year in the league. What he kind of did during that time, he was 257 of 407, so, we're talking about very minimum amount of attempts. Again, guys, we're talking 25, 26 attempts a game. 63% completion rate, 3,357 yards passing, 26 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. I will say he went 12 games throwing under 30 attempts. Once again, difference in the league, to be quite honest. But we see that 26-9, he was actually better touchdown to interception ratio his sophomore over his it's not called sophomore and junior because that's confusing with college, but his second to his third year. You know what I mean? Like, there was a clear, I wouldn't call it like he regressed, but he certainly had a far more impressive resume the year prior than his third year in the league. Now let's talk Dak Prescott, guys. Dak Prescott was 25 years old his third year in the league. It was 2018. The year prior in 2017, so let me start with 2017 with Dak, his second year in the league. He threw the ball for 490 attempts, 308 completions, a 62.9% completion rate, 3,324 yards, 22 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Guys, I hate to tell you this, but Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott's numbers so far, they don't look that much different from Jalen Hurts, if I'm being honest. Yeah, they threw for some more touchdowns, but they're not that drastically different, guys, to be quite honest. Dak had the highest attempt amount when you broke it down per game coming into his coming out of that second season. He had 31 attempts a game. So, I mean, you can see a clear escalation in Dak kind of throw the ball. We also see, like I said, you're talking 2013 compared to 2018, you have 5-year difference, expansion in the NFL. Things are kind of changing. We're clearly solidified at this point in 3 wide receiver sets, although Dak had a very strong running game behind him in Ezekiel Elliott. With that said, I mean, he produced, guys. I mean, I'm not going to take away from what Dak did early in his career. Although 2017 was a step down, he still won 9 games, if we're being honest. I think they finished 9-7. Yeah, I mean, they kind of got that 9th win off an Eagles team that was packing it up and getting ready for a Super Bowl run, no doubt about it. But, I mean, you play the competition that's in front of you. We can't say that for the Eagles and then take it away from another team. You play the competition that's in front of you. He won 9 games. It's eerily similar, guys, to be honest. His junior, third year in the league, whatever. I'm sorry, guys, I keep saying that. 356 completions on 526 attempts. We see a drastic rise up in the attempts. I mean, they went out and they got him some players, right? I think this is where you see a big difference. I don't know that you can say that with Russ, right? Russ really didn't get the expansion in players for a couple of years down the road. They don't really get DK Metcalf until Doug Baldwin's kind of on his way out. So I think Seattle's circumstance and situation is different. But when you look at Dak, we know what happened in 2018. First off, they went out and they drafted Michael Gallup, but then they also went out and traded for and acquired Amari Cooper. So they did things to kind of help the offense around Dak Prescott because he had some pretty fledgling, failing, and kind of wide receiver targets, to be honest. They weren't great. And he ended up putting up 356 of 526, 67.7% completion rate, really high completion rate, guys. 3,885 yards. He was under 4,000 yards. 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Okay. Josh Allen, 2019 season. We remember Josh Allen because we played him in that windy bowl game in the middle of the season, if you guys remember. It's where, there's like 30-some mile per hour. It might even been higher than that, gust of winds. It was a ridiculous game. That's where we ran the ball right at him. And, I mean, Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders had a crazy game that day. But Josh Allen, on the 2019 season, when you averaged it all out, he had 29 attempts, guys. He was 271 of 461. So 461 overall attempts, averaged its way out to 29 attempts a game. 58.8% completion rate, 3,089 passing yards, 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. He had 8 games under 30 attempts, but I will caveat that by saying one of those games was like an impartial start in Week 17, so he didn't play the complete game. So, I mean, obviously that's going to skew things a little bit here. The following year, what do they go do for him, right? They go out and they go get him Stephon Diggs. In addition to Stephon Diggs, they draft, Gabriel Davis. I mean, they did things to surround him with talent. And then in 2020 season, we saw Josh Allen blossom into like one of the better quarterbacks in the league, like a true franchise quarterback in his third season in the league. He went 396 of 572, big jump up in passing attempts, I mean, that jump was even bigger than what we saw from Dak Prescott from his second to third year. You know, when you look at Josh Allen, his second to third year was a tremendous jump in the passing attempts. A 69.2% completion rate, really, really high completion rate. 4,544 yards. We got a 4,500 yard passer now from under 3,100 yards to 4,500 yards. That's a huge, huge jump, guys. I mean, he 50% increase there easily. 37 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. I mean, Josh Allen clearly emerged on the scene in 2020. That leads us to Jalen Hurts. Let's go back and let's take a look at last season. All right, he was 265 of 432. When you average out that 432 throws over 15 games, it was 29 passing attempts. Right around what we saw from Josh Allen, a little short of Dak Prescott, ahead of what we saw from Russell Wilson in terms of the attempts. He had a 61.3% completion rate. He had 3,144 yards, 16 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Just throwing the ball, guys. I'm not counting the stuff he did on the ground. I know that has to count in how you evaluate him overall, but to be fair, we didn't really add in Josh Allen's early season stuff like that either. He had 9 games under 30 passing attempts. I think what becomes difficult when you talk about Jalen Hurts is just the crazy swings that the offense had, right? I mean, he had 3 games where we were just ridiculously dominant in the running game, and he was under 20 attempts. And I'm not saying like these guys had games where they were under 25 attempts too. They had 3 or 4 in their early careers as well where they were being highly game managed with a heavy run. But our swings were just so crazy. You know, we have games where he's well over 40 attempts, and then you got games where he's, you're running the ball almost at 40 attempts basically. So there were games where we clearly ran the ball at 40 attempts. So I mean, the swings were kind of drastic with Jalen Hurts. I think you have to find a way of balancing this offense, right? You got to find that happy medium. And that's where things get difficult in this conversation, where you guys are asking me about driving the vehicle. We went out there, what did we do, right? We went out there, we got him A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown has been a top 5 yards per route run receiver in the past 2 years. From number 2 in 2020 to number 5 in 2021. This guy's production is top 5 the past 2 seasons. You got a clear-cut number 1 wide receiver. You got a 1B in Devontae Smith, who's an ascending player that potentially the ceiling could be better or higher than A.J. Brown, but I'm not going to give the young man that kind of clout until he earns it. He's got to earn his way to what we see A.J. Brown doing in the league. Nonetheless, hey, there's weapons here. You drafted Devontae Smith. You just added A.J. Brown. You drafted Quez Watkins, although it wasn't necessarily for Jalen Hurts, but that's a nice little benefactor to have as a third, wide receiver. You got Dallas Goedert, who just got a second contract, who, by the way, led all tight ends in yards per route run, so he was the most productive tight end. When you broke down every route they ran and you divided up how many yards they had, he was the number 1 tight end when you broke it down by that yardage marker, by yards per route run. He was the most productive tight end in the league. He's got to secure footballs. That's one thing I'm going to say about Dallas Goedert, man. We have our fun picking on other teams for dropping footballs. Dallas Goedert's got to secure some catches too, to be honest. The talent's there, guys. Between Quez Watkins, between Devontae Smith, between A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert. He's got the tires, man. The 4 tires are there. It's just a matter of, can we put Jalen Hurts behind the wheel of this bus and can he drive it? That's really the question here. And as I broke it down, I was trying to think about realistic expectations, guys, because I've heard some really unrealistic expectations. And I want to state this outright. This is not me saying that this is what his numbers will be. This is me saying this is a realistic, achievable thing. And if he goes beyond this, if he does better than these numbers I'm going to give you, that means you got something pretty unique and special. But here's the realistic expectation I have for 2022, guys. I got him at about 30 attempts a game. When you average it all out, I expect him to be about 30 to 31 attempts a game, right? Right around that number. We know how this game is advancing. We know what's going on. So I have him at 319 completions on 510 attempts. I upticked him from 61.3% completion rate to somewhere around 62.5% to 63%. Somewhere between, 1 to 1.7% uptick in terms of production, completion rate, right? He's going to have to play better on a handful of snaps here and make sure he's making those throws. He's going to have to get to that rhythm step and really make a decision about the leverage of a corner and whether the ball should be out of his hands. There's some hesitation in this game at time. I saw it. I pointed out in film before. We all know it. It's a matter of, is he ready to take that step? I think he is, but it's all gut instinct right now, guys, until it's on the film. I'm going to say 4,100 yards. I look at this at about 240 yards a game. He averaged about 210 this past season. I'm expecting about 240 yards a game. You got you got a 1A and a 1B, and you got a really good emerging tight end. You got a really, really high quality guy. Almost got 700 yards. He was just short of 700 yards as a third wide receiver. You should be able to get 4,100 yards. You should be able to get 240 yards a game. So I got him at 319 of 510, 62.5 to 63% completion rate, 4,100 yards, 26 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. To me, that would be this is where you have to be. This is where this bus needs to be. Now, the touchdowns to interception ratio, if he comes up with 24 to 8, 27 to 11, whatever, guys. That's not whatever. As long as it's not a ridiculous ratio, as long as the ratio is okay. It's really the ratio you're worried about, not the numbers. I'm fine with that. But to me, that's the reasonable expectation for the player. He has to hit that, in my opinion. If he doesn't hit 319 of 510 for about 62.5 to 63% for 4,100 yards and 26 and 9, somewhere in that area, guys. If he's not in that area, I think it's pretty difficult, right? Because to me, you look at a guy like this, you look at just the trajectory of quarterbacks that have come before him. It's between 3,800 to about, the outlier being 4,500. So I'm going to say 38 to about 4,200 yards is about where the norm is. If you're going to be that guy that's going to eventually earn the second contract and potentially become a franchise quarterback, you need to land it here. And Jalen Hurts is already at a disadvantage because the other guys are already a year ahead of him in their trajectory and in their career at starting, because he only really started the final stretch of that rookie season. So he's really only going into his second year as a full-time starter. But he's going to be looked upon as if he's the same thing that we saw from these other guys. Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott. He's got to drive the bus, guys. It is what it is. I'm not saying he will or won't succeed. I'm just stating, judging the numbers, judging historic precedent at the position, this is what the expectation has to be. This is what you have to accomplish in order to get there. All right, guys, I want to just spend a couple times to thank a few people. Number one, community members, channel members. I want to say thank you to my guy Don, Sean, Eminem, Ray, Dante, Takeem, Red Eagle, Proud Infidel, Paul, Drew, Mark, David, Sharon, Miss Sherry, Jalen, and Romy. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate y'all being channel members. It means a lot to me, guys. You guys help me all the time with video ideas and stuff like that. I appreciate y'all so much. To everyone who bought my guide, I just want to say a quick thank you. I'm not going to give away your email addresses, guys, so it might be kind of hard to tell who you are, but just know that I'm thankful for everything you guys did. So, I have Kevin, Philly Freak, OMZ, Michael, Raw Blue, Cody, Kimba, Randy, Woodson, Triple D, my guy Illpage, Rick, Williamson, Amon, Giannis, CR, Philadelphia, Ben, Ghost, Francisco, FW, Christopher, Chris Ivy, Mitch, Matthew, David, and Dante again. Hey guys, thank you all so much for buying the draft guide. I really appreciate you guys doing that. We have more stuff coming up. I will be preparing a 53 plus 16. We'll be doing that full kind of like, when we get to that point of like breaking down the roster, that will be coming up. I'll also probably break down a 90. We'll probably do like when we get that 90 set and like kind of who these players are, what they represent. I'm going to I'll do one on all of our undrafted rookie free agents and all of our draft picks. So those are the things that are coming up in terms of building guides. I appreciate you guys, and thank you all so much, and I'll see you guys on the next video.